Solve x to the fourth minus 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. This is not a quadratic equation, but we can write it as a quadratic equation if we let u equal x squared and u squared equal x to the fourth. Substituting, we would have u squared minus 4u minus 1 equals 0. This does not factor. However, because the coefficient of u squared is 1 and the coefficient of u is an even integer, it's fairly easy to do this solve this by completing the square. We would add 1 to both sides and then take half of negative 4, which is negative 2, and square it, which is 4. So we would add 4 to both sides of the equation to complete the square. This then would be u minus 2 squared equals 5. Using the principle of square roots, we would get u minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5, or u equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Now our original variable was x, so we have to substitute the x squared back for the u. And I'm going to separate these, and I'm going to write that x squared equals 2 plus the square root of 5, or x squared equals 2 minus the square root of 5. Now we have to think carefully on one of these. Over here, 2 plus the square root of 5 will be a positive number. So if I use the principle of square roots, I would get x equals plus or minus the square root of 2 plus the square root of 5, and that's not a problem at all. Over here, however, the square root of 5 is actually greater than 2. So 2 minus the square root of 5 is a negative number. I can still solve with the principle of square roots, but I have to do some simplification because I really have a complex number here. X equals plus or minus the square root of 2 minus the square root of 5. I want to factor out an I, so I am going to, inside the parentheses, factor out a negative 1. Negative 1 times, that reverses the order, this will be the square root of 5 minus 2. Now the square root of negative 1 is I, so I can write that as plus or minus I times the square root of the square root of 5 minus 2. And that actually gives me 4 solutions then. The solutions are plus or minus the square root of 2 plus the square root of 5, and then plus or minus, and I'll leave the I there, you can put it at the end if you want, plus or minus I times the square root of the square root of 5 minus 2.